Great thing that it is official. Ink to paper, baby. Ink to paper. Tres Leches is back in full effect. The blonde bomber, okay? The one who was willing to fight and throw the Hadoukens. Sophie Cunningham is officially back in the fold. And Kelsey Plum took a $400,000 pay cut. And that is raising many questions about Kelsey.
At first look, the figures don't make sense because there shouldn't be any noise about a one-year return. However, shirt sales for the Indiana Fever are increasing at a rate that seems nearly unrealistic. The return of Sophie Cunningham has, for some reason, completely changed the tone of the series. What altered overnight then? And why does it seem like this action revealed a plot for which no one was ready?
Money she got. But there are players out there that have gotten a ridiculously insane amount of money. Max deals that are total head scratchers. Seriously. But here we are, first year of real money being tossed around, and this is what happened. Breaking. Alexa Philippou broke this. Sophie Cunningham has agreed to a one-year deal to return to the Indiana Fever, sources told ESPN. Cunningham joins guards Kelsey Mitchell and Lexi Hall in coming back to the Fever.
Nobody anticipated that a regular re-signing would become a major economic event, but as soon as Sophie Cunningham discreetly decided to return, odd things began to happen with the Indiana Fever. And it was more than simply excitement. It was a rush, a spike, a veritable buying frenzy that gave the impression that a championship had already been won before a single game had been played.
Back. Dun, 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 dun. Sophie Cunningham just signed a deal, a one-year deal with the Indiana Fever. Good for her. I'm actually really happy she's back. She was just making me nervous yesterday with these goofy videos, sending mixed signals. Like, yo, what the hell's going on with Sophie Cunningham? She's going through something. But they gave her a one-year deal, and I still think that video was about the Fever because she said, I'm going to bet on myself. So they gave her a one-year deal, not a multi-year deal.
Oh, I see. The idea that a single player signing a one-year contract might cause apparel sales to soar seems nearly absurd at first. However, this is the point at which the narrative begins to defy expectations since it is more than simply a basketball deal. It's about chemistry, timing, and a squad that manages to become the WNBA's most captivating plot.
For a doozy, courtesy of Alexa Philippou, ESPN breaking. Sophie Cunningham, let me move this right here. Boom. Sophie Cunningham has agreed to a one-year deal to return to the Indiana Fever, sources told ESPN. Cunningham joins guards Kelsey Mitchell and Lexi Hall in coming back to the Fever. Indiana has also added newcomers Monique Billings and Ty Harris so far this free agency, okay? So Tres Leches is back in full effect, baby. We back, baby. Let's go. Sophie Cunningham is officially back with the squad. This is something we all wanted and we all
People believed they knew what was going on in Indiana, but this action made everyone reconsider since this is the part that first no one wants to admit out. Cunningham was brought back by the Fever for many reasons than just sentimental reasons related to her shooting. They invited her back because late in the previous season, something clicked that they couldn't afford to lose, and that just so happened to sell concert tickets and jerseys.
Beyond her game skills, it looks like she brings chemistry to the team. Welcome back, Shooter. Welcome back. Great news. Tres Leches is back together again. Yeah. Well, I did this last year when I was banging the drum for Sophie to be in the three-point contest and not Lexi. I went back and looked at the stats, and there was about a 25-game period where Sophie was the best three-point shooter on the Indiana Fever. She was the one knocking down shots and had a higher shooting percentage from three-point range. So, never mind the enforcer, never mind the toughness, all this other thing. She can knock down a shot.
It's easy to forget now, but her initial stint in Indiana wasn't pleasant at all, and injuries kept interfering with whatever rhythm she attempted to establish. As a result, it was simple for detractors to subtly paint her as disposable or, at best, interchangeable. However, there was a moment that turned everything upside down. Cunningham wasn't just terrific from mid-July to mid-August. She was incredibly effective, shooting over 50% from three-point range, the type of percentage that causes defenses to worry and fans to instantly remember your name every time they open a shopping app. She abruptly ceased playing a supporting position and began Indiana to have one of the most distinctive personas in basketball. Caitlin Clark, who has already made the Fever a national obsession and attracted people who had never even considered watching a WNBA game before, is at the center of it all. However, the fact that Clark is no longer the only one receiving this attention is what sets this scenario apart. She has a cast, of a very particular cast. Cunningham recently landed a part in it. The way this squad works together is unquestionably fascinating, and supporters have begun to realize that the Fever are not only skilled but also chaotic in the most entertaining way imaginable.
So fall back, haters. Anyway, Sophie Cunningham is back, and I'm happy she's back. She got that fire, and I like that she brought that spirit to the team that was missing from years before. And Sophie Cunningham is actually a decent basketball player. I don't know why people hate on her and say, oh, look at her stats. No, she's actually a solid basketball player. She's what you need, what you want from the bench. She brings the energy, she's consistent, and she hit some clutch shots, especially in that Commissioner's Cup. She hit a nice three to extend the lead, and I'm like, this girl is really...
With that bold, even reckless confidence, Clark is arranging everything music. Cunningham, on the other hand, spreads the floor and makes threes as if she's attempting to prove a point with each possession. In the midst of all of that, there are times that feel more like controlled lunacy than structured basketball, which is precisely the type of product that sells since consumers are purchasing jerseys based on personalities rather than simply statistics. Cunningham, on the other hand, handled it as proof that the atmosphere will endure. At that point, the numbers began to rise. Sales of merchandise are truthful, and the Fever Shop began shifting equipment at a rate that even insiders were surprised by, since it wasn't intended to be the action that caused a surge, but it did. And the reason it did show a more significant aspect of this team's future. Because Kelsey Mitchell was the subject of another conversation that was subtly developing in the background while everyone was rejoicing over Cunningham's homecoming.
Come on, did y'all think she was going to... Listen, we are the #1 team for the championship right now. Did y'all think any of the players from last year was going to go anywhere? Where better do you go? You come play for Indiana, you automatically going to have more fans, more people care about you. You're going to be seen. You playing next to the greatest thing that ever happened to the WNBA and Caitlin Clark. Like, it's unmatched. Also, this is another thing I told everybody, even when I went live yesterday, don't worry. Sophie will be back. Now, she did sign a 1 year, and I understand why. We ain't got to get into that.
This is where things start to get a bit awkward because, although Cunningham returned on a short-term contract that provides the team options, Mitchell made a completely different choice, and supporters have begun making connections that may or may not even make sense. Simultaneously, Kelsey Plum made headlines around the league for accepting a large salary reduction in order to assist her club in building a stronger squad. This tale quickly became the sort that sparks controversy. The discussion abruptly changed. It was no longer simply about Cunningham coming back. Because controversy, even little controversy, tends to magnify everything around it, including jersey sales. It began to become about sacrifice, priorities, and what it truly takes to create a contender. Because fans are now choosing sides, discussing choices, and becoming more involved in the narrative rather than merely rooting for a team. Additionally, every time someone disputes who is more dedicated to winning or who made the better financial decision, they are subtly maintaining the Fever at the forefront of the discussion, which again translates to exposure. Additionally, sales are correlated with visibility.
And visibility translates to sales.
So, Cunningham is back. We have the team that everybody wanted. Basically, the Fever brought back last year's team, minus like Howard, which I wish we had, and I'll take Ari, and added Caitlin to the mix. So I think there's going to be a lot of criticism. I think it might take take a little bit to get that crew dialed in with adding Caitlin to it, but I think we have a great shot. I think we can go far. Everyone stays healthy.
However, this is the twist that adds even more intrigue to the entire issue. The Fever are not yet behaving as a group that is committed to a long-term strategy. Offering Cunningham a one-year contract rather than the multi-year security she allegedly desired points to a highly calculated move. Most significantly, it implies that Indiana is continuously developing, experimenting, and making space for greater things. Because each deal becomes a part of a much bigger picture in a league where wage cap choices may define an organization for years. The Fever are obviously attempting to keep their options open at the moment. They must pay for their young stars. They need to think about possible draft selections. And when fans are considering chemistry, things start to get pretty intriguing. Additionally, both viewpoints contribute to the same result in some way. And that's precisely where Indiana is at the moment. Even though Cunningham's comeback first appeared straightforward, it fits well within that pattern. Fans are reassured without the team being locked into a long-term commitment. It allows for growth while maintaining the present identity.
They reached a deal with Sophie Cunningham for a one-year contract to bring the team together that was on a run last year until everybody got hurt. Now, Sophie claimed fame last year after she tackled down J.C. Sheldon in a game that saw Sheldon and Mabry knock down Caitlin Clark. And Sophie stepped in and said, you know what, I'm not taking it. And she took after J.C. Sheldon.
Above all, it maintains the momentum, because it is very hard to restore momentum after it has been lost. However, the Fever are now losing nothing. If anything, their pace is increasing. And the most obvious indication of that is the sales of jerseys. The fact that this spike is occurring before the season even starts, meaning that expectations are already rising, makes this even more enticing. When it anticipates personality and narrative tension, then the current events will seem more like a sneak peek than the main event. Additionally, the Indiana Fever's present attention spike will appear to be the first signs of something far bigger that is still developing beneath the surface. In actuality, Indiana has found itself in a situation that most teams spend years attempting to engineer: organic attention that is unanticipated, feels natural, and is hard to ignore. Because viewers' sincere interest about whether what they are viewing is sustainable or merely a well-timed flash is driving it rather than marketing tactics.